Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Cheers to a healthy life. So glad to be alive. Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Live a responsible life. Yes, you got to do what's right. Alright then, make sure so you're getting rest. Good sleep brings happiness. Bust a laugh, demolish the stress. Balance your work life so you won't depress. Yeah, I am responsible. I live responsibly. I am responsible. I drink responsibly. I am responsible. I live responsibly. I am responsible. Hey! Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Cheers to a healthy life. So glad to be alive. Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Live a responsible life. Yes, you got to do what's right. Drink and live responsibly.
Good morning, I'm Diane Ashton Smith and this is Responsible Living Now, a knowledge forum on the responsible consumption of alcohol. We're coming to you live from Red Stripe, the world's coolest beer company, right here in Kingston, Jamaica, streaming on our social media channels, Red Stripe Corporate Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so very much for joining us as we discuss this very important issue of alcohol misuse and explore how we can together tackle this problem. Today is indeed a special day as we observe Enjoy Responsibly Day. We call it ER Day, a celebration of moderation. And Red Stripe has long been a pioneer in the promotion of responsible consumption. And on ER Day, we amplify the messages around responsible drinking to engage our consumers and raise awareness for action. You'll hear more about how we're doing that in a little while. But right now, I'd like to acknowledge our esteemed guest speaker, the Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, joining us remotely. Our speakers and panelists who will be sharing with us, Justin Kissinger, Chairman and CEO of the Worldwide Brewers Association, Paula Fletcher, Executive Director of the National Road Safety Council, Dane Barr, Bear Advocacy Manager, Global Public Policy in the Heineken Company, and Mitzi Harris-Dillon, Interim President of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. And special welcome to our invited guests and members of the media who've joined us virtually. And of course, big shout out to my Red Stripe team and all our followers and viewers on social media. Welcome to you all. Well, today we're coming together as stakeholders from different sectors with one goal, promoting the responsible consumption of alcohol for the common good. Our ER Day theme is Alcohol Abuse is No Joke. Drink and Live Responsibly, which has been driving our media campaign that started earlier this week on TV, radio, in print, and on social media. And later today, we'll be in the trade engaging consumers, encouraging them to drink and live responsibly. And throughout the next hour, the presenters in this knowledge forum will share global best practices and give us some insights into what's at stake in the fight against alcohol misuse. We will, of course, give you, our online audience, an opportunity to ask questions. As I mentioned before, we're streaming on Instagram and Facebook with our internal teams live on Workplace as well. So please put your questions in the chat and we'll try to field as many of them as we can during the Q&A section at the end of the presentations. So we begin now with remarks from Justin Kissinger, Chairman and CEO of Worldwide Brewers Association. Before joining the WBA, actually, Justin was a very good friend of mine. He is, in fact, was then Global Public Policy and Responsible Consumption Lead for the Heineken Company. And before joining Heineken, Justin served on Capitol Hill in the US, where he was counsel for the House Democratic Caucus, among other roles. So welcome to you, Justin. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane. It's nice to know that we're still friends, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you.
Indeed.
And this whole group. What a great day. So thank you very much for having me. As Diane mentioned, my name is Justin Kissinger. I'm the CEO of the Worldwide Brewing Alliance. The Worldwide Brewing Alliance is a community of brewers and brewing associations who come together around their love for beer and to champion the beer category around the world. I'm really excited to be here to discuss the important topic of responsible consumption, set some context for what's going on in the world on issues related to the harmful use of alcohol, and talk a little bit about the beer sector and how brewers can play a positive role in reducing the harmful use of alcohol. So thank you very much for having me, Diane. I wanted to start off with a look at just the beer industry and how beer works as a business and how the product gets from an agricultural field or raw material like cassava or sorghum and turns into a product that consumers around the world enjoy and can be an important part of local culture, national pride, identity. It's a product that's intrinsic in a lot of societies. It's overwhelmingly locally produced because there's a very long value chain. It's a natural fermented beverage that starts off, as I mentioned, as barley or cassava, moves on to be malted and prepared for the brewing process where brewers take it and turn it into beer. It's packaged in a bottle or a can, labeled and put on a truck for distribution where it goes to bars, clubs, restaurants, retail outlets all around the country, and then is ultimately sold on to consumers to enjoy. You go to the next slide. The fact that beer has alcohol in it in many instances makes it, the harmful use of alcohol a really serious issue and something that brewers pay close attention to. We see meaningful progress on indicators for the harmful use of alcohol over the last 10 years. The World Health Organization determines harmful consumption by measuring average rates of things like binge drinking, alcohol-related death and disability, and then consumption per capita. Globally, these key indicators seem to have been declining over the last 10 years. But what's also clear is that there's a lot more work that needs to be done around the world, and in particular in some parts of the world. The progress is encouraging, but we really need to work together to deal with these issues and continue these positive trends. That requires a whole of society approach, businesses, government, stakeholders all working together to reduce harm, because all alcoholic beverages, including beer, can be used in ways that are harmful. And some people shouldn't be drinking at all. For brewers, we celebrate the fact that our products are lower alcohol by volume, and we believe that by nudging consumers towards lower alcohol alternatives, we can accelerate some of these positive trends. Lower alcohol beverages are less associated with some of the riskiest drinking patterns, things like injuries, accidents that come from binge drinking large amounts of concentrated alcohol. Increasingly, brewers are investing in things like low and no alcohol portfolios in order to help consumers moderate their consumption. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If we could go to the next slide. So, looked at globally, there's progress, but there's a lot more to do. Consumers need to be engaged around living responsible, balanced lifestyles and reducing, the harmful consumption of alcohol. And beer can be part of the solution. Brewers are committed to being part of the solution. As I mentioned, beer can be a lower alcohol alternative for many occasions. It can also be an affordable and lower alcohol alternative to illicit markets, which often are dominated by cheap to produce, high strength, low cost liquor products. And the regulated beer space can provide an affordable, attainable alternative to those sorts of products. But increasingly, the most important contribution that brewers can make for consumers is the growing portfolio of low and no alcohol options. Products with zero alcohol, or less alcohol that are branded can be part of enabling consumers to choose less alcohol while remaining in drinking occasions. It's much more difficult for a consumer who's at a bar with friends to step out of the occasion with a soda or an alternative. But when you have access to a product that naturally enables you to be part of the group while having less alcohol, can be an important enabler for making good choices. Reducing opportunities for drink driving, reducing consumption within occasions, and enabling consumers to make smart choices. This is increasingly something that brewers are focused on around the world. We see new introductions of these products. In some countries, whole companies are springing up simply making non-alcoholic brewed products, which is a wonderful part of the trend. Next slide. This movement is really backed by consumer trends, and our policies need to enable these consumer choices that are compatible with balanced lifestyles and that promote products that encourage moderate consumption. Globally, we see strong consumer trends towards health and well-being. In Jamaica, I'm sure there's no difference because this is something that consumers everywhere are aware of and are clamoring for. Beer's a natural fit for this movement because it provides options across a range of drinking occasions, lifestyle choices, and really enables consumers to enjoy the product without having any alcohol at all, if that's what they choose. The product is able to be reformulated. It gives consumers more choice, and therefore we think it's something that's uniquely suited to promoting responsible choices. But brewers also go beyond the product. Engaging consumers, engaging with stakeholders, promoting responsible consumption through partnerships and programs are a critical part of the toolbox that brewers bring to the countries where they operate. Working together through a whole of society approach, bringing all of our intentions to bear on dealing with the issue, we can create a critical mass to reducing harm and really sustain a movement towards moderation and responsible consumption of alcohol. And this movement is the best way to drive down those indicators that I showed you earlier and enable better outcomes in society. Through programs that aim to reduce harms like drink driving, to educate consumers on what moderate consumption looks like, train bartenders on responsible serving to help consumers in the drinking occasion to know their limits and to make sure that they're staying within moderate limits. All of these things make meaningful contributions to harm reduction and amplify positive trends in society. The discussions like this are a key part of moving the ball forward and working together to deal with these vexing issues. And I'm really grateful to have been invited and to be part of this. I look forward to continuing the discussion in the next time we have together. So thank you very much, Diane, for having me here.
So much, Justin. Very powerful information there. The importance of training, the importance also of providing alternative options for our consumers, and certainly education is so key. And I think that is such a great segue to my chance now to welcome our keynote speaker, who really needs no introduction. The Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education, Youth, Information, who's been such a great partner in our fight against alcohol misuse. Now, prior to assuming portfolio responsibility for education, youth, and information, the Honorable Williams, Minister Williams, served as the Minister of Science, Energy, and Technology, and before that, the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. She is a chartered financial analyst by profession with years of experience in the investment and financial services sector. And we really want to thank you, Minister, for joining us today. So welcome, and thanks as always for your endorsement and support, and we welcome you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And I have to say, I love your outfit.
Thank
Goes
you.
with the season.
Indeed.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Let me acknowledge Ms. Diane Ashton Smith, moderator and head of corporate affairs, Mr. Justin Kissinger, chairman and CEO, Worldwide Brewers Alliance. Thank you for that overview of the brewing industry. Mrs. Paula Fletcher, Executive Director of the National Road Safety Council, Mr. Dane Barr, Manager, Bear Advocacy, Global Public Policy, Heineken, and Ms. Mitzi Harris Dillon, our own President of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this forum. Let me join in commending the Red Stripe and Dennis and Geddes Foundation for organizing this forum, allowing for a frank discussion about responsible consumption of alcohol by adults amidst efforts to discourage early drinking by our young people. We know that culturally, the consumption of alcohol has been a significant part of many cultures over the years, certainly our own here in Jamaica. We also know that the abuse of consumption sometimes leads to family and societal dysfunction. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, with responsibility to guide public policy and programs aimed at the healthy development of our children and young people, is therefore keen on discouraging any activity that would have a negative impact in the lives of our children. I'm sure you're well aware that there are a number of studies that have clearly established that underage drinking can lead to significant public health problems, and that the young people who drink alcohol are more likely to experience school problems, such as higher rates of absenteeism or lower grades, social problems such as fighting or lack of participation in youth activities, legal problems such as arrest for driving or physically hurting someone while drunk, physical problems such as hangover or illnesses, memory problems, possibly misuse of other substances, changes in brain development that may have lifelong impact, and other effects. Many studies are there, of this. Children who display or are engaged in these activities need the help and guidance of responsible adults to steer them back to the holistic lifestyle. At the same time, we recognize that peer pressure and the abusive behavior of adults can push children and young adults towards binge drinking. In addition, within the context of the confinement of movement because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are anecdotal reports of an increase in physical and emotional abuse by adults among themselves and sometimes of children. These situations may be made worse by the overconsumption of alcoholic beverages. And so all of this all of what I've just said underscores the need for parents to be active in the lives of their children, to engage them. I know that there are many different parenting styles that may influence whether their children follow the advice that parents are given regarding alcohol use. Against this background, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is supporting the efforts of the D&G Foundation to help guide parents to understand how their behavior may affect their children. Our hope is that mothers and fathers will take heed to the message, to consider themselves and the impact of their behavior on their children. Whether teens defer to parents on the issue of drinking is statistically linked to how parents parent. Parents who provide a healthy and consistent balance of discipline and support are most likely to have teenagers who respect the boundaries they have established around drinking and other behaviors. It is important, therefore, that we talk early and often in developmentally appropriate ways with our children and teens about our concerns and theirs regarding alcohol. Establish policies early on and be consistent in setting expectations and enforcing rules. Consistency, as you know, is crucial in establishing commitment. With open respectful communication and explanations of boundaries and expectations, parents can continue to influence their children's decisions well into adolescence and beyond. This is especially important in young people's decisions regarding whether and how to drink, which are decisions that can have lifelong consequences. So once again, may I commend the D&G Foundation for your being concerned about how and in what quantities your products are consumed, but more importantly, taking these necessary steps in terms of these initiatives to increase awareness among teens and parents, and more important, to educate so that we all make the right choices and to collectively help us all to understand that alcohol abuse is no joke. Best wishes for your campaign. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Williams. Very clear that this is everybody's business. And we really want to thank you for your continued endorsement and support of this very important initiative that we're doing. And without your support, I don't know, it goes to show that partnerships are so key, and your thoughts and your suggestions are really powerful, and I hope we've all taken heed on those. I particularly think and reflect on my own parents, from my parents, and we're all the better for it. It's all about responsibility. And thanks to our other specially invited guests and our online audience joining us via the Red Stripe corporate Facebook and Instagram pages. Yes. And I really want to big up my Red Stripe team as well, joining us via our internal platform on Workplace. So this is Responsible Living Now, a knowledge forum on the responsible consumption of alcohol, brought to you by Red Stripe and the D&G Foundation. And today's event is the latest in a series designed to raise awareness and share best practices with the key goal of encouraging behavior change. We believe that alcohol abuse is everybody's business, and we know that any successful strategy to address the problem must involve a whole of society approach. And Red Stripe has been working with stakeholders from across several industries to drive this message. And today, as we celebrate Enjoy Responsibly Day, we're pushing the theme, alcohol abuse is no joke, drink and live responsibly. Well, we're going to move right now into our panel discussion and presentations, beginning with a look at what's at stake in this fight against alcohol misuse. And so we welcome Paula Fletcher, the Executive Director of the National Road Safety Council, who has extensive experience and training in traffic safety management, road safety audit management, and defensive driving. Mrs. Fletcher's role at the Road Safety Council is part of a career spanning more than 30 years in the social sector. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Mrs. Fletcher. Mrs. Fletcher, is she there?
Yes, I'm there chatting away and my mic is muted. Sorry, let me go again. Thank you so much for that introduction, Dan. And I want to acknowledge the Minister of Education, very useful contribution, and also the top executives of Red Stripe and all the other of your what you call them now, your workers. You use a word, I'm trying to remember it, but I can't. Your team at Red Stripe. So I'm here this morning wearing the hat of the Road Safety Advocate, which is what we are, National Road Safety Council. We have the responsibility for promoting the reduction of death and injury on our roads. Not a very easy subject matter to deal with, and it's not peculiar to Jamaica at all, but nonetheless, we plug ahead with our mandate. So I'm really very happy to be here because this is an important subject matter for us. Next slide, please. The next one, that just says the topic, right? So if we could just have a quick look at the statistics. Last year, 2020, 432 fatalities. For the year to date, and this is up to this morning because we get a report by about 8 o'clock from the police. 439 persons have been killed on the road from 392 crashes. That's a big number. So you can see that we're ahead of last year and the year has not ended yet. We also have some other figures there. The pedestrians, motorcyclists, and the cyclists themselves, you will see, account for the majority, 61% of the road users killed on the road. Now, unfortunately, we do not capture data in a way to be able to drill down to the amount of persons who have been either injured or killed because of the use of alcohol. Suffice it to say that about over a decade ago, there was a study done at some of the hospitals, and there was a significant correlation between the persons presenting in the emergency section and the use of alcohol. So we know it's a problem. We are using it in too many cases in a harmful way. Next slide, please. So I'm going to look at, give a little background, look at what's at stake, and define exactly what is responsible drinking, what is a standard drink, have a mention of the blood alcohol content, and the steps both the government and the industry can take to bring us to that point as we partner to make alcohol use safer. Next slide, please. Okay, so it has been mentioned before that we've been consuming alcohol for centuries, as far back my research showed as 10,000 years ago. It was actually used for its psychoactive effects. This means how it affects how the brain works, causing changes in mood, awareness, thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And today it's a billion-dollar industry globally, and is widely socially accepted, having become a major part of the human recreation and consumption landscape. Next slide. And there have been many changes to alcohol over time. The industry is quite creative, flavoring it, you know, adjusting the alcohol content, and of course, attractive packaging. However, it is still a mind-altering substance. The wide use of alcohol as a cultural norm cannot be ignored by us as road safety practitioners, as we seek to balance both societal behavior and the safe use of our roads. This really will be the lens through which this presentation should be viewed. And what is at stake? And there's a very short answer I have to that. This at stake is the fact that alcohol can severely alter a person's life and the lives of those around them in cases where persons drink and drive. And of course, if you're a vulnerable member of society, if you lose, for instance, the main breadwinner to a crash because they were under the influence, it can actually push families below the poverty line. And it has actually done that in some cases. Next slide, please. And the question is, what is responsible drinking? And why should the National Road Safety Council be talking about responsible drinking? And we are the ones who topmost on our mind is safety. Responsible drinking can be defined as the enjoyment of alcohol by adults who choose to drink in a manner that does not harm others and minimizes risk of harm to the consumer. No, we can handle that. Minimizes risk of harm to the consumer. It is a term mainly coined by the industry, we know, but it's a term that we can work with. And we will work with it because it provides a space where we can have dialogue and agreement with the industry on messaging and other interventions that promote safe use of our roads. Next slide. So what is a standard drink? Because this whole forum is knowledge-based, so we want people to have an understanding of what they're talking about. So all drinks are not equal. So we see here that 12 ounces of beer, a regular can of beer, can be equal to 5 to 9 ounces of malt liquor, or equal to 5 ounces of wine, or equal to 1.5 ounces of 80 proof liquor, which is your vodka, tequila, whiskey, and that sort. So all drinks are not equal. So we need people to understand that they must know what they're drinking and what they're putting in their system, because it affects the level of alcohol in their blood. Next slide, please. And we have heard that there are a number of things that affect how the alcohol works in us. Our weight, our gender, the amount of food we have on board, the amount of alcohol we actually consume, our tolerance, because each one of us, it varies, our tolerance of alcohol, the time frame in which we're taking the alcohol in, the level of fatigue that we may have, and the level of hydration. So those are some of the matters that we have to be mindful of. And when we talk about responsibility, yes, we can talk about persons who consume, but we also have to talk about the other players in terms of the national policies that must be set, and as well for the industry, what they should be mindful of. So let's have a look at some of the steps that we have been actually working with the government to see that they bring on board to have a safer environment when it comes to drinking and driving on the roads. So some years ago, I personally got involved in asking the then Minister of Justice to look at the Spirit License Act, because I found my children who were in high school then, they were drinking alcohol at parties. It was readily available. And by that time, these parties, it was all inclusive. So we were the one as parents paying for them to enter these parties. And I actually attended one. And I saw how it was organized, the free flow of liquor. And there were also cases of persons, even personally known to me, that have had crashes on the way from normally an event. So I asked for the Attorney General to look at the Spirit License Act to see if it stated the responsibilities of all the players, the organizers, the promoters, and the like. And the answer came back no. So I lobbied for, by the way, my children are all married and they have their own children now. That's how long it has taken, sadly to say. So they have reached a stage now where there is a submission, a cabinet submission to be made with the recommendations. And some of the recommendations have to do with being able to identify the age of persons when they enter a facility where alcohol is being served, and to provide prior licensing of bars, because we know the whole setup in Jamaica. You put a paper on which says you have intention to get a certificate, and that's perfectly legal under the system, but it is not satisfactory. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm glad you're here, Minister. Perhaps you can put in a word for us. The Intoxilizer or breathalyzer program, as it is often called, that system needs some investment. A lot of the instruments, the instruments that are the evidence-based ones, because initially you blow in a tube, and then if you're over, you're taken to generate a paper which can then be used in court on the evidence-based machine. But we have had problems with them, and they need to be, they need to retool and to upgrade so that they can actually have them in their motor vehicles and not necessarily have to take people to a center. So we're watching that very carefully, and it's on our agenda. We can't let it go until it's satisfactorily dealt with. Ongoing public education, key. We have young people every day, even though they mature, we still have to be on message. So we really need to be funded to be able to have public education programs. And a particular one that we like to promote, and I know that you all have done that too under Responsible Drinking campaign, is promoting the use of a designated driver. Studies, of course, to undertake to look at the effect and level of alcohol used by drivers involved in crashes. Next, please. So in terms of the industry now, these are some of the things that we would like you to look at. I know some of them you have taken on board already, because we actually had a representative from the sector around the table with us when we were looking at the 1930s Spirit License Act. So I know that you have done some of these, but this is really what we need to be looking at. The alcohol service areas should be specifically defined and fenced around so that you can't have people coming into the area, because you need to have identification at entry using wristbands. That's a common thing to use to identify the age of those who can drink. And of course, they have to give proof. Signage in the general area so people become acquainted with what the laws of the land are. Of course, having alternatives in terms of food, drink, water, even hot soup. I know they do at some sessions. And that you have hours within which you serve the alcohol, reserving the last hour where you close off everything. Also to limit and prohibit alcohol sponsorship and promotions of brands, especially where you have minors. Next slide, please. In terms of sale, again, checking the ID of persons who come into an area where alcohol is being sold, training waiters not to sell persons that are obviously intoxicated, and perhaps limited, and this would be very, very controversial, but limiting persons, the amount they actually drink. This is another one too that I found interesting, and WHO has a lot of information to guide us on this whole thing, but using different cups to indicate what the content that's alcoholic in a cup and that is non-alcoholic. And of course, no price discounting on alcohol. And I think that's my last slide. I just want to say that I appreciate the partnership that I've had with Red Stripe over the years. And we really need to step up and to continue to collaborate. Public education is key. And we also need to put a little pressure, if I could say that, even though the minister is here, to ensure that work that has been done on the Spirit License Act is not lost, because there are a number of critical provisions in there that could keep us safer and reduce the incidence of persons being involved in crashes because they're under the influence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Fletcher. There are so many nuggets coming out of your discourse just now. Powerful that you have shared. One, around all alcohol is not created equal. That's something we stand on. Two, the work that is being done on the Spirits Licensing Act. I wish I could jump up and say hallelujah, because this is something we have been speaking about together with you for a long time. You speak about the ID checks. And the great thing is that we have been ahead of this legislation. It's what we do at Red Stripe. And we are going to be expanding that in the years to come, making sure that our bartenders are trained, making sure that all purveyors of alcohol are asking for IDs in the absence of this legislation. And we need it now more than ever. The education that you speak about is so, so powerful. These are powerful reminders of the reasons we cannot let up on this fight against alcohol abuse. And I really want to thank you, Mrs. Fletcher. I'd love if you could share with us the updated Spirits Licensing Act, so we too in our corner can advance these conversations and really make sure that we're doing the right thing. So thank you so very much. Now to our audience online, if you have questions for Mrs. Fletcher, please put them in the chat and we'll take them during the Q&A session at the end. Well, our next presenter is a senior leader in the Heineken Global Organization, Dane Barr, who is the Beer Advocacy Manager in the Global Government and Regulatory Affairs Department at Heineken. He is responsible for telling the story of beer and the impact it has on society, including its use as a tool for promoting moderation and responsible consumption. So let's welcome Dane Barr. Welcome, Dane.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for the invite. It's great to be here today on the panel. This is responsible consumption is obviously part of my job, but it's also something which is personally quite close to my heart. So it's great to be here with the rest of your guests and to be able to talk about a lot of the great work that we do at Heineken and indeed Red Stripe. So if we can start with the first slide. Thank you. So for more than 150 years now, Heineken has been passionate about making a positive impact on the world around us. A big part of this is ensuring that consumers enjoy our products in responsible ways, that they're making informed decisions about what they're drinking, when they're drinking, and how they're drinking. It's so important to us that it's one of the three key pillars in our Brew a Better World strategy, and has been for more than a decade. We've just refreshed this recently with our 2030 plan with 3 new commitments. These are on the screen in front of you. These are always a choice, address harmful use, and make moderation cool. If we can have the next slide, please. So I'll start with make moderation cool. It's probably the most visible element of what we've been doing on a global basis over the past 10 years. At Heineken, we don't believe that you need to drink alcohol to be cool. But in many places around the world, there can be societal pressures to drink more than you might otherwise want to. We also know that people can be put off by moderation messages if they feel that they're being lectured to. Now, whether it's through feeling lectured or peer pressure or a lack of positive role models and messages in the media, this can lead to the idea that it's somehow not cool to consume alcohol moderately. But that's an attitude that we need to change if we want to be successful in reducing harmful use. Now, luckily at Heineken, we have access to a lot of tools that can help. Consumers already think of us as a cool brand, and the partnerships and sponsorships that we have allow us to work with positive role models to help deliver our message. A great example of this is our When You Drive, Never Drink platform, which you can see on the screen in front of you. Through it, we've leveraged our relationship with F1 and worked with famous drivers such as Nico Rosberg and Sir Jackie Stewart to create engaging, highly shareable content, which shows them making sensible and moderate decisions about alcohol consumption. We've also made sure that this message is visible around the F1 racetracks themselves for audiences watching in the stands or at home. Now, over the past decade that we've run this campaign, we've reached more than 700 million people all around the world, raising awareness of the issues of drinking and driving and showing them, importantly, positive role models. Now, our target is to increase this to 1 billion over the next few years. And we're putting our money where our mouth is too, because we've committed 10% of our annual Heineken media spend towards responsible consumption messaging in every country that we operate in. Next slide, please. So we've been very successful in getting our messages about moderation and responsible consumption across to people. Raising awareness is a very important first step, but we must go further than that. That's why in our Brewing a Better World 2030 plan, we've committed to developing partnerships to directly address harmful use of alcohol in 100% of our applicable markets. Now, these partnerships, they are going to take many forms. Some of them will be with research institutions and universities, seeking to understand the triggers behind harmful use and designing interventions to stop it. Others, we will work with NGOs or community organizations, lending our support and expertise in things like logistics or communications to programs which they're already running in their own areas. Now, that's what we mean at Heineken when we talk about partnerships. It's more than just providing funding to something. We want to bring our strengths together with the strengths of others in society to tackle the harmful use of alcohol in this whole of society approach that we've talked about a few times today. Now, each partnership will be formed on a local level to make sure that we've zeroed in on a problem which is actually relevant to that particular country. It's not a one-size-fits-all type policy. But with our global presence, we'll be able to share all of the learnings and the best practice across the whole organization, meaning that every partnership that we activate in every market increases the success of the next. The final piece of this puzzle is to make sure that people have everything that they need to make a choice. This is twofold. I mean, firstly, they need to have all of the relevant information in order to make an informed decision. And in order to help that, we've just rolled out a new labeling policy at Heineken, which will see clear and transparent consumer information on all of our packaged products in the next 2 years. Now, we've gone above and beyond what we've ever done before. This time, we will be including the full nutritional information, the ingredients, the allergens, as well as, of course, the age restrictions and the symbols warning against drinking while pregnant or before driving. But what's also new on this label is a new QR code, which, when scanned by consumers, will take them to a page where it tells them a lot of information about alcohol and health to make sure that they really have all of the information that they need to be able to make an informed choice. The second part of choice is to make sure that if they do decide they don't feel like drinking, that there's a great tasting, zero alcohol product available for them. After all, drinking is a social activity. Having a beer with friends in the sunshine is a great way to spend an evening, but it doesn't mean that you need to drink alcohol to actually join in on that. That's what Heineken Zero does. We launched it a couple of years ago, and now it's available in 100 markets worldwide. We're committed to increasing this choice even further, with more of our brands set to get a zero alcohol variant. Our goal is to have at least 2 zero alcohol options in every country where we operate for the next 2 years. Through this, we've given consumers much more choice. They can always have a great tasting beer, whether they decide they want to drink alcohol or not. Now, those are the 3 key pillars of our Brew a Better World plan, but they're not the only ways that we promote responsible consumption within the organization. We work with our partners in the WBA and IARD, the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking, to self-regulate and make sure that our activities are responsible. This year, we've created guidelines in both e-commerce and influencer marketing, with buy-in from many major players in the alcohol industry, in media, in advertisers, and much further beyond this. Internally, we also have our own responsible marketing code, which is a set of rules that governs all of our marketing communications, no matter which brand or which country we're working in. But these represent best practice and often go far above and beyond what's required of us by legislation to make sure that we only promote our products in a responsible way, to the right audience, with the right message, and at the right moment. Finally, we have a comprehensive alcohol policy for employees, which provides information, support, and all the tools that they need to become ambassadors for responsible consumption in their day-to-day lives. Now, of course, all of what I've said applies at the global level. Now, what this means is that everywhere that we operate, including in Jamaica, we work towards these objectives. But it doesn't stop there. Our local teams in every country also run a wide range of their own initiatives, including Red Stripe in Jamaica. I'm sure you're all very familiar with many of the great programs and campaigns Red Stripe's been involved with over the years, including Drink Right, and of course, ER Day over here today. It was briefly mentioned by Dan a few minutes ago, but from training and education of bar staff to partnerships with taxi providers to make sure people get home safely after a night out, to working with the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica in the Parents Movement earlier this year. Red Stripe is a great example of how alcohol producers can help promote responsible consumption as part of this whole society approach. But of course, there's always more work to be done, and we look forward to working with partners old and new in the coming years as we strive together for a more responsible world.
Thank you for bigging us up at Red Stripe and the work that we're doing. And of course, the amazing work that's influencing our work being done by Heineken Global. Important to note, and I think Paula Fletcher also mentioned it earlier, that we have a lot of data in Jamaica that's so old. So we're not speaking about what's relevant to us now. And so, as you spoke about, there is more that we need to do. And one of the things that we are going to be doing from the Red Stripe level, with the support of the global team as well, is to find out exactly where are the issues. We're talking specifically about harmful use of alcohol. And I was very pleased that Paula Fletcher made that distinction, that alcohol consumption can be part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle, but when it becomes to harmful use, that is where the rubber hits the road, and we need to really implement these interventions. So thank you so much. A very insightful presentation, Dane. And to those of you who've been listening, you know, we've discussed what's at stake. We've heard how one global organization, Heineken, approaches the promotion of responsible consumption. And it's now time for our third and final presentation. This one, we will speak about the value of community and how to leverage that in this fight against alcohol abuse. Mitzi Harris Dillon. She's the interim president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, the NPTAJ, who've also been partnering with us as we raise awareness about alcohol abuse, particularly among teenagers and their parents. Well, Mrs. Harris Dillon has been serving with the NPTAJ in various capacities since 2013. And she's described as a career volunteer. She's been serving in voluntary capacities since she was a teenager. Professionally, her experience spans close to 30 years in the sector. And we really want to welcome you, Ms. Harris Dillon. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you also for your amazing partnership throughout this year with our parents movement. So keen to hear from you this morning, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Diane. And thank you and greetings to all our guests online, our distinguished presenters, the team here at Red Stripe and D&G Foundation. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this morning representing the parents of Jamaica as we share in this knowledge forum on responsible living now. So I must begin by commending the team, Red Stripe and D&G Foundation, for the Knowledge Forum. It is indeed timely, it is indeed welcomed as we come close to the end of the year, where we know that a lot of families and friends will be gathering, and as much as we like to stay remote, but we are sure that persons will be having a little bit more fun than we have been having throughout the year. So the topic of discussion today, if you will bring up my slide, is leveraging the power of community. And as we think about that, I am going to share with you a little introduction and background of the organization that I represent. We are a fully voluntary, non-profit organization. We were formed in July 2006. We were commissioned through the efforts of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and a team of concerned parents. We serve as Jamaica's governing body for PTAs island-wide. We are an advocacy group. We advocate for our parents, our guardians, our teachers, our schools, our students, and we support the vision of education transformation. We represent your interests at the national and regional level. We are the link between the PTAs in schools and the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. And of course, we serve on several national committees, and we are involved in a number of stakeholder discussions with government, other agencies, including the D&G Foundation, as it relates to our island's children. Next slide. So membership within the NPTAJ is open to all schools. And we, of course, encourage all our parents, all our teachers, all our guardians to be involved in every aspect of our children's growth. And of course, we know that we play a critical role in harnessing the support and the commitment of our PTAs, and we are ensuring that they are empowered with the skills and requisite resources that are necessary to build proactive and vibrant PTAs within our schools. And of course, we offer a host of other benefits. So part of our mandate and purpose is to develop the material that is required to train our PTA executives at schools as well at the parish and the regional levels. So, leveraging the power of community. And there are some words that immediately come to mind when we think of this topic. We look at engagement, we look at communication, we're looking at support, we're looking at partnership, we're looking at collectiveness and cohesion, we're looking at sharing, and we're looking at commonality of purpose. Next slide. But we are going to be focusing today on the first 4 words. These are engagement, communication, support, and partnership. Next. So when you really think about it, despite all the negatives that has been associated with the pandemic, at least some good has come from it. One thing is for certain, we are a community. And when I say community, I speak not just of us here physically present. I'm speaking of our guests online. I'm speaking of our nation, Jamaica. I'm speaking of the diaspora and wherever in the world our families are. We are a global community, not only from an economic perspective, and COVID-19 has contributed to that. Next, yes. Why is community important? So the support that community groups and agencies can provide to our families, it allows our parents to better meet the needs of and support our children, and thereby helps us to set the proper conditions for the holistic development of our children. So the importance of community cannot and should never be underestimated. Beyond formal education, community can help us solve social issues such as alcohol misuse. Alcohol abuse has been listed as one of the top 4. So that importance is further cemented since the onset of the pandemic. So, and you're looking at community. The physical borders of community have fallen, and community has now become not just the stakeholders present on the school compounds, but it now includes our homes, the communities in which we live, and every geographical region on an international level. So, I mentioned every family would have been touched by this pandemic in one way or the other, be it physically, emotionally, economically, and spiritually. And when you look at it, our children have been as much affected as us adults. So, as parents, I know that our roles have not been easy. There is no parent handbook. So often what we would rely on is good old common sense. Then we have our family traditions, our morals, our values, and our attitudes. And of course, our individual experiences, a wealth of experiences with so many stories to be told. So we touch on the worldwide increase in pandemic-related alcohol consumption. And coming out of the pandemic, across the globe, there are some surveys that would have spoken to an increase in alcohol consumption. And as recently as 2 weeks ago, there was a survey released by the Spanish government. It's called the Comprehensive Alcohol Report, and it's the first ever that they have issued. And there were some disturbing statistics coming out of that as it relates specifically to children and alcohol misuse. And let me share some of these statistics with you. It says that alcohol consumption caused over 15,000 annual deaths between 2010 and 2017. Then we took a look at the survey on drug use in secondary education, and that was done in Spain 2018. And it says that alcohol consumption was widespread among secondary education students. And these are the figures. 77.9% of the students reported alcohol consumption at some time in their life, of which 76.3% were males and 79.4% were females. Then there is a 77.5% within the last 12 months, of which 74.1% were males and 77.5% were females. And then there is 58.5% in the last 30 days, 57.2% males and 59.8% females. And it says that the prevalence of consumption for these time periods is higher in girls than in boys. And the age reported for the first alcohol use is 14 years on average for both sexes. Jamaica is no different. We should aim at reducing alcohol abuse, particularly in parents and our children. But together, we must and we will meet the challenge head on. The conversations that we have with our children about life are important and critical, especially as it relates to matters of safety and security. Alcohol consumption is one such topic, but it is not always easy for us as parents to have this very important conversation with our children. For some of us, it may be that our own parents and the other adults within our homes may not have been comfortable having that conversation with us. Some of them may have introduced us very early to alcohol and thought it quite funny, but it's not right. We have to take a stand, and we need to start having those conversations with our children now. We need to protect them. We are no longer going to call it the dreaded conversations. Let us start that conversation. It is, after all, our responsibility as parents and guardians to protect our children. And then when you look at, from the education perspective, that the ministry is seeking to increase the time spent in secondary schools from 5 to 7 years, it is going to be taking our children beyond the 18 years of age, which is a legal drinking age. So there may need to be a further discussion about that matter. So we all have a duty to be responsible in whatever we do, and that includes the responsible consumption of alcohol. Even some of us as adults should not be partaking in alcohol for one reason or the other. It could be health issues, economic reasons, or other reasons. So that now takes us into conversations. And why is it important to raise awareness about alcohol? The more you know about alcoholism, the better able you are to have that conversation with others and to show support. Compassion to struggling alcoholics is something that we need to do. We need to be compassionate. And it is important for us to raise awareness about alcohol. And today's Knowledge Forum provides us the perfect opportunity to do that. So, as we tackle the issue of responsible alcohol consumption, it takes us now to our parents' movement. This is an initiative that was started last year between the D&G Foundation and the National Parent Teacher Association of Jamaica. And it speaks to support. They would have reached out to us and we would have started a discussion. I'll share with you a little bit about the parents' movement. And it is said that whether through entertainment, social media, or by persons in and around our homes and wider communities, the children in Jamaica are being exposed to alcohol consumption at a very early age. And even though it is a little bit dated, coming out of the 2017 National Council on Drug Abuse School Health Survey, only 32% of our 13 to 17-year-olds reported any alcohol-resistant skills being taught in schools. And as such, we can expect that many of our nation's children are desensitized to alcohol misuse and can be led to believe that the misuse they are exposed to is normal and acceptable. It is not. So, the Parents Movement is a proactive campaign by the National PTA in partnership with D&G Foundation, as I'd mentioned earlier. And together, we are getting this crucial conversation started between parents and our children. And parents, naturally, we have the greatest influence on our children's lives. So we have been targeting our parents, our guardians, and some teaching staff, and we are aiding them with the tools that they need to impart this knowledge to our children about safe alcohol consumption, which is reserved, I must say, for adults at the age of majority. The legal drinking age is 18 years and older. And it is critical for us to have this discussion so that we can reduce the prevalence of underage drinking in our nation. So, the parents' movement, though the discussions would have started from last year, was officially launched in May 2021. I mentioned before, our main purpose is empowering our parents, our guardians and teachers throughout the PTAs across our island to have the conversations at home, to be able to spread the knowledge throughout their respective PTAs. And working in partnership very closely with the D&G Foundation, we have prepared kits, a PowerPoint training presentation, and there are 3 very effective short videos that dramatize the parent-child conversations when it is discovered that the child in the family has been exposed to alcohol. So far, we have engaged about 224 schools across the island, over 400 participants, plus we would have had NGOs and youth associations in some of our online sessions. So the response to our sessions, the parents' movement sessions, have been so overwhelming that there are plans afoot to roll out more sessions online. And as Jamaica slowly and safely reopens, we anticipate engaging in some face-to-face training events soon. So there is opportunity to strengthen partnerships with other agencies and NGOs in furthering the partnership with the D&G Foundation so that we can ensure that all of Jamaica becomes and remains committed to safe and responsible alcohol consumption. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Mitzi. Really, really appreciate, and again, the work that you are doing with us on the parents' movement. We really appreciate that. You have been doing an amazing job. We've had so many parents who have come back to us to share about the impact that these trainings have had on our teams, on parents. And quite rightly, they are the source of influence. They are the first point of reference for children. And so we urge our parents to be part of the conversation, not be afraid to have it, because at the core, our intent is to ensure that we reduce the harmful use of alcohol, we reduce the exposure of alcohol to our children, because as you know, they will always experiment and they're going to always try. And everyone surely has a story here in Jamaica. But this is the work that we're doing, and as she rightly says, it's all about partnerships and, as we always say, a whole of society approach. So it's time now for Q&A. When we open up the forum for questions from our audience, remember you can still put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can. So, for Justin, you said the harmful use of alcohol is declining globally. That sounds like good news. So, why do you think we should still be concerned? You mentioned the dangers of illicit alcohol markets, but let me first just hold on to that question. Why do you think it's so important for us, even though we're seeing from the WHO data that alcohol consumption has reduced and the harmful use of alcohol, what they call heavy episodic drinking?
Thank you very much, Diane, and really great presentations from the panel. What a fantastic group you have here. I guess simply put, progress isn't success. There's a lot more that can be done. Any instance of harmful use of alcohol is something that is detrimental to the community. And the more that we can do to intervene, promote positive lifestyles, responsible choices among consumers, the more work we can do to educate society on how to drink moderately, what safe consumption of alcohol looks like, and the more that we can do to drive down consumption and exposure of alcohol to youth, the better. Just because we've seen positive trends doesn't mean that they're evenly distributed. We want to make sure that gains are shared around the world and that consumers everywhere who encounter alcohol are able to make the best possible choice for moderate, balanced lifestyles, enjoy the product, but make sure that they're doing so in a responsible way.
Absolutely.
So we have more work to do.
Yes, very powerful. You also mentioned, Justin, the dangers of illicit alcohol markets and how beer can help reduce that occurrence. What are some of the risks of a black market?
Well, illicit alcohol is very dangerous, particularly unregulated alcohol. You have no idea the conditions that it's produced in, whether it's safe, whether it is the product that is being marketed in the place where it's being sold. There are instances of things like poisoning and other negative effects from illicit alcohol. Mm-hmm. Bringing people into a regulated market, ensuring that they're given products that are safe, that are produced in a way that is communicated to them, that it's appropriately labeled, are all elements of making sure that consumers can make good choices.
Very good. And Dane did mention that. But Dane, I have a question for you. Why are providing choices so important in the promotion of responsible consumption?
Well, the important thing about choices, when we want people to make good choices themselves, you need to be able to give them the tools to do that. So part of that is making sure that they have the information, and part of it is also that they have an alternative which goes to them. Mm-hmm. What we've known is that a lot of people perhaps don't want to drink alcohol, but they're out with their friends, they're in a bar, they're in a place where alcohol is being consumed, and they may feel that they're a little left out if they can't join in. And that's what products like non-alcoholic beer are great for, because it is the same taste, it's the same look, it still feels the same in your hand, and you don't feel like you stick out from the crowd so much. So if you give people these choices and have lower alcohol beers or no alcohol beers, it's much better for them, and it's easier for them to make the right decisions. Mm-hmm.
Indeed, I think, choice is always good, and so is co-regulation, at least as we see it. So how important do you see co-regulation within the alcohol industry?
Yeah, listen, I think co-regulation is vital. As alcohol producers, we do have a responsibility to the communities that we serve. And part of that is we want people to consume our products responsibly as well. Mm-hmm. Alcohol producers have a lot of knowledge and expertise in how these things work. We know what works, what messages can help to reduce harmful consumption. And that way, if we have a seat at the table and can be part of the discussion in terms of co-regulation, we can help when it comes to that. Whereas if we're left out in the cold, all of our expertise sadly goes to waste. Mm.
Absolutely, and we have to be at the table, wouldn't you say, in terms of creating policy. But I'm going to move now, thank you so much, Dane, to Mitzi. Now, as a career volunteer from your perspective, how do we leverage the spirit of volunteerism to tackle alcohol abuse?
Thank you. So, as a volunteer, you are committed to a cause. There is a passion that you have about serving others. And it is important for us that regardless of the circumstances that may surround our particular situations, that as a voluntary organization, as a group, that we get the information that our parents and our guardians need, particularly as it relates to protecting our children. So given that alcohol misuse is such a hot topic these days, we thought it important that we collaborate with D&G Foundation to ensure that we get the information that our parents so very much need into their hands so that we can have those conversations at home. It helps to build and develop on the whole familial aspect. You know, when you can engage with your children and have a discussion with them about what's really important, about what is safe alcohol consumption, what alcohol misuse is all about, and set those standards in place to say that, hey, you're not allowed to drink, but here are the reasons why. Sometimes, as parents, we may not have been brought up in a situation where we would have been exposed to this kind of conversation or dialogue before. So now is a perfect opportunity for us, being armed with this information, to roll it out and share it even wider across Jamaica, so that we can engage all our parents, all our families, even our schools, in having these very important conversations with our young adults and our children.
So my final question to you, Mitzi, would be around it. You referenced it around education in schools and how 30+% of students had never had that kind of a discussion or intervention within the schools. Any thoughts around inclusion in the school curriculum?
I believe that the whole discussion around alcohol consumption and misuse could really be incorporated into the school curriculum. This is something that we can have a further discussion with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and of course in partnership with DNG Foundation, to build a more robust discussion to see how it is that we can translate that. It could be during one of the guidance classes with the guidance counselors, having those one-on-one discussions with a group of students. But it is always important to engage our young people, to engage their minds, to open them up to the possibilities about what could really happen, the level of negative impact alcohol misuse will have on their education and their ability to function later on in life. And alcohol misuse really messes up with the opportunities that are out there in the working world waiting for them. Yes. So we really need to have that discussion. Indeed. And we can work together through the nuances and ensure that this is something that is spread right across homes and in school.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much, Mitzi. Really appreciate that. And I think that that is a powerful note on which to end. In fact, the parents' movement started out of the movement, which is where we used to have conversations in the schools, and it's something that we are going to reactivate, where we were working in partnership with the National Council on Drug Abuse, making sure that the right conversations were being had at that point of contact, and then thought it important to increase the conversation with the parents so that coming out of school, the continuation of that dialogue would happen where it matters most. So that's all the time we have for the Q&A right now. But if there are any other questions, please send us a DM and we'll try to get you those answers afterwards. Well, we're almost at the end of this knowledge forum, but we could not let you leave without sharing more on our responsible drinking campaign for the rest of the year. We're joined on set now by our responsible consumption lead, Stacey Ann Smith, Red Stripes brand and corporate PR manager. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you. Enjoy Responsibly Day.
Great to have you.
Thank you so much, Di.
And great job.
Thank you very much. You know, this is something that I am passionate about because I believe it's not only good for the business, but it's the right thing to do. Absolutely. And today we are so very happy to make an announcement. I mean, we've been on radio since this morning, so for those persons who aren't local and who haven't heard those ads, but we have partnered with a couple of heavy hitters. And as you mentioned before, the theme for Enjoy Responsibly Day this year is alcohol abuse is no joke. Drink and live responsibly. So right now, we're gonna share with you that our two influencers, or two partners or ambassadors, Dufton Shepherd and Miss Kerry-Ann Collins, aka China K, right? Mm-hmm. And they have come on board to join with us to use and to leverage their own very powerful platforms to share this message. We're just gonna share a couple of videos with you now so you can get a taste of the excitement that's to come.
Awesome.
I got something to tell you. I got something to tell you. I got something to tell you. Me try to tell them that me have something to tell them. Me don't really want to use them myself already, so ready. You ready? All right, good. What I wanted to tell you guys was that I'm partnering with Red Stripe for their Drink and Live Responsibly campaign. Now you might be wondering, Tiny K, what that mean? it means exactly what I said. I want you guys to live and drink responsibly. Now it's the holiday season. I will have time now for go outside, okay? But I want you guys to do that responsibly, which means if you're gonna go drink, make sure saying a drink on an empty stomach. Make sure say have food in your belly. And when your friend them start saying, just tell them saying a dip on that, okay? This campaign is very important to me because life is precious and I want everyone to live to see another day, okay? So I need for you guys to remember to drink.
Yes, guys, live and drink responsibly.
Yeah, what Edna said, drink and live responsibly. Oh, yes, enough. You
Leave enough. Enough to make them know, live and drink responsibly.
Greetings world, it's me Dufton Duffy Shepherd and I'm here with Melon, Red Stripe Melon. Yes, you're right here. And we're having a good vibe because we are here. We're telling them about the surprise, right? I am an ER ambassador for Red Stripe, Enjoy Responsibly ambassador for the entire month of December. Now on Friday it's ER Day, so there's going to be a whole lot of things going on, but right throughout the month you can go to my social media pages for a lot of giveaways, a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, and you can also check stuff out on Red Stripe's social media pages. Somebody over here, so just have enough of them. All right, man, come in at the picture. Cheese and peace. Just wake up, you understand? Shall wipe out the lemon out of her eyes. But it's gonna be a good vibe. Yes, Dufton Duffy Shepherd is an ambassador for Enjoy Responsibly month for Red Stripe. So check out my social media pages, as I said. Go see the fun and the niceness. It's gonna be a good vibe. What's the real? I'm not telling a story about this.
Dufton is hilarious as usual.
I love that guy.
So we will definitely get more of that energy right across social media. We actually started earlier this week and today there is a massive blitz. So we're on radio, sponsored hours, we're in the press, so many different things happening on social media especially. I also want to remind all our followers on social media to tune in to our Twitter Space conversation tonight when we're going to have an intellectual conversation with another set of influencers, Kingsley Morgan and Joel Namdarkam, who are really going to talk about this whole of society approach. Very easy and relaxed, so we know we'll definitely get lots of eyes and ears on that. And that's what we want, Diane. We want to spread this message, and as Dufton said, is Enjoy Responsibly month, you know, because the message bears repeating. So thank you so much for inviting me to share.
Of course, and what a great job you've done. So thanks so much, Stace. We're looking forward to the kind of engagement we know Dufton and China K will deliver. And that's where we close this ER Day Knowledge Forum on responsible consumption. Remember the theme, alcohol abuse is no joke, drink and live responsibly. It's all about moderation and making the right choice for you. And from our side, we've been increasing the non-alcohol options for consumers, as you heard Dane say. And last year, we launched in Jamaica Heineken 0.0. Same great Heineken taste, but with zero alcohol. And today, in 100 bars across the island, we're offering consumers a first drink on us, giving consumers one complimentary Heineken 0.0. So follow us on Red Stripe Corporate to get details on those locations. And don't forget to tune in for that Twitter space that Stace just spoke about on how to advance a whole of society approach to responsible drinking. Hosted, of course, as she says, by Noel Namdarkam and Kingsley Morgan. Great guys there. But before I go, I'd like to thank our speakers, the Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, who delivered the keynote address, to Justin Kissinger, my good friend, Chairman and CEO of the Worldwide Brewers Association, Paula Fletcher, Executive Director of the National Road Safety Council, Dane Barr, Bear Advocacy Manager, Global Public Policy in the Heineken Company, and of course to Mitzi Harris Dillon, Interim President of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Thanks, of course, to our online audience who joined us. Special thanks to my Red Stripe family and our production crew led by the corporate affairs team, our chief storyteller Stacy, and of course our chief digital expert, new name for Ty, right? And of course to the management and staff to Phase 3 for making us look good and keeping us on air. Amazing stuff. So guys, thank you so much. I'm Diane Ashton Smith, and it has been my absolute pleasure to be your moderator. Happy ER Day, everyone. Happy ER Day.
Cheers! I am responsible, I live responsibly. I am responsible, I drink responsibly. I am responsible, I live responsibly. I am responsible. If you want me, oh, let me show you. Please remember, socialize responsibly when you want your cooling kit. Alcohol beverage if you're 18 and older. This are no picnic thing. If you feel like drink, don't drive. If you're driving, please don't bother with the drinking. Remember if you have water in between your rounds, see balance your system. If you feel like turn up the thing, then assign a chauffeur. Or drink Heineken Zero if you wanna stay sober. Exercise daily, replenish and recover. After that, grab a Malta and relax by your sofa. I am responsible, I live responsibly. I am responsible, I drink responsibly. I am responsible, I live responsibly. I am responsible. Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Cheers to a healthy life. So glad to be alive. Let's drink and celebrate. Let's drink and celebrate. Live a responsible life. Yes, you got to do what's right. Alright then, make sure so you're getting rest. Good sleep brings happiness. Bust a laugh, demolish the stress. Balance your work life so you won't depress, yeah. I am responsible, I live responsibly. I am responsible.